Hey everyone, welcome to This Explainer, where we're diving straight into the terrifying, utilitarian math of building a perfectly painless world. It all starts with an author back in the early 90s. Picture this. She's physically tearing perforated paper from a noisy, dedicated word processor, completely unaware that she's creating a story that's literally going to alter the trajectory of people's lives.
Okay, so let's get right into this because it is wild. Usually when an author hands a manuscript to an editor, especially one meant for younger readers, you expect standard feedback, right? Things like, hey, great job, or maybe let's tighten up chapter 3. But when this author handed over her manuscript, her editor didn't give standard feedback at all. He just wrote one singular, chilling word: gulp. And honestly, that perfectly captures the sheer gravity and just the terrifying nature of what she had put on paper.
And the real-world reactions totally prove that this text is so much more than a simple children's story. I mean, letters poured in globally. A Trappist monk actually wrote to say he considered the text sacred. An autistic, selectively mute teenager spoke to their parents for the very first time just to urge them to read it. A teenage girl reconsidered taking her own life. And, perhaps most chillingly of all, an adult cult survivor begged the author to never go near a specific city because his former home was exactly like the community in the book.
So to really understand that kind of intense reaction, we have to examine the temptation of sameness. When you look at the anxiety and the absolute chaos in our own daily lives, we kind of have to ask ourselves, wouldn't it just be easier if someone else made the optimal choices for us? It's an incredibly seductive idea, isn't it? Just giving up control to completely eliminate all that stress.
To get why this is so tempting, we really need to look at the community's mechanics. They didn't just eradicate unpredictable weather and flatten out the hills. They literally removed color. But why? Well, they didn't just flatten hills for agricultural efficiency. They targeted things like the color red because color implies preference. And preference? Well, that's the seed of choice. Choice introduces the possibility of making the wrong choice, which leads to regret, conflict, and eventually the absolute horrors of war, famine, and systemic failure. By flattening both the visual and the emotional landscape, they successfully removed the very vocabulary of rebellion. And this brilliantly illustrates how they enforce compliance through what they call precision of language. Imagine a 3-year-old kid, little Asher, confusing the word snack for smack when he's just asking for his morning treat. Immediately, he gets struck with a physical discipline wand. The beatings escalate until the toddler stops speaking entirely. Think about that. They literally beat him into silence over a single vowel sound, all just to control the very boundaries of thought.
It doesn't stop with toddlers either. Even our protagonist Jonas gets chastised for saying he's starving when he's really just hungry. This is straight-up weaponized language. They condition these children with physical pain so that their brains automatically sever any linguistic connection that strays from absolute, literal, state-sanctioned reality. You literally cannot conceptualize suffering, injustice, or love if those words have been violently scrubbed from your vocabulary.
You know, the community actually perfectly mirrors a highly sanitized, lockdown smartphone operating system. Eradicated war and famine? That's exactly like having no bugs or system crashes. Strict precision of language? It's like you cannot download third-party apps. The whole thing runs perfectly. The battery life is incredible, but the user has zero ability to customize the home screen. It's optimal, painless functioning, sure, but the citizens do not truly live. It's completely hollow user ownership.
But you might be thinking, surely saving millions from war and famine makes the utilitarian math work, right? Well, the massive flaw here is that chemically and socially removing the capacity for pain automatically eradicates the capacity for deep, authentic emotion. True, passionate feeling has literally been bred out of them, meaning they merely function, and functioning is simply not the same thing as being human.
This total lack of history and emotion creates a massive structural vulnerability. If the society faces a novel crisis they've never encountered before, they have absolutely no context to draw from. So, they need an IT solution. Enter the receiver of memory. This is basically a single biological server and backup hard drive tasked with holding all the forbidden data of the human experience just to advise the committee. The psychological toll of being that single point of failure is absolutely devastating, and Jonas is the one selected to bear the crushing weight of human history completely alone.
When the current receiver, who's known as the giver, physically transfers these memories, it bypasses Jonas's conditioned brain entirely. Jonas doesn't just get a highlight reel, he experiences the raw, unedited data of existence. And the staggering contrast is mind-blowing. He goes from feeling the minor sting of a sunburn straight to the agonizing crunch of a broken leg on ice, literally feeling like a hatchet is lodged in his bone.
And it's not just physical pain on the menu here. The The community couldn't handle profound emotional trauma. So what did they do? They outsourced it entirely to an 11-year-old boy. He feels the sharp, biting cold of snow and the exhilarating but dangerous warmth of sunshine. But then it gets so heavy. He experiences the roaring grief of an elephant standing over its poached companion. He is immobilized on a smoke-filled battlefield, watching a boy with matted blonde hair, drenched in blood, begging for water. It is the ultimate loss of innocence.
But the flip side of all that trauma is a memory of a holiday celebration, of warmth and family. Jonas finally learns the concept of love. And the absolute tragedy here is what happens next. He asks his parents if they love him, and they actually chuckle. They reprimand him for his imprecise language, telling him point blank that love is a meaningless, obsolete word. They aren't even being intentionally cruel. They are completely, physically, and linguistically incapable of understanding the emotion he is so desperately trying to connect with.
Now, the giver points out that if people can choose, they might make wrong choices, right? Freedom is inherently dangerous. But Jonas comes to a profound realization. Safety at the cost of humanity is a false economy. A life without risk is a life without love. This leads Jonas to make a conscious, highly rebellious choice. He spits out his daily pill, the medication that suppresses strong emotions, choosing the messy, painful reality of human emotion over chemically induced numbness.
Once Jonas's eyes are open, the facade of utopia completely crumbles, and it forces us to ask an incredibly uncomfortable question. If a society values efficiency over humanity, how do they process the inefficient and the imperfect? Really, how does this sterile world handle ambiguity?
Well, they execute them through a process called release. The finality of evil here is absolutely terrifying as Jonas watches a video recording of his gentle nurturer father going through these exact steps. Step 1, he weighs identical twins and finds one is just a few ounces lighter. Step 2, he cheerfully talks to the lighter baby in this sweet sing-song voice, calling it a shrimp. Step 3, he calmly injects a lethal liquid directly into a vein in the infant's scalp. And Step 4, the dead baby is packed into a cardboard carton and casually shoved down a trash chute. He murders a child and then just goes about his day.
The absolutely crucial point to understand here is that his father isn't acting out of malice. With zero concept of mortality, grief, or love, he is simply an operating system blindly executing a line of code. He is automatically dragging a corrupted file to the trash bin, completely blind to the fact that the file is a living, breathing human being.
This precise danger of utilitarianism divorced from empathy connects directly to a tragic event 10 years prior, the story of Rosemary, who we actually learn was the giver's daughter. She was selected, but during training she was completely overwhelmed by the unedited memories of loneliness and loss. It broke her. She requested release and injected herself with the lethal liquid. But the aftermath was catastrophic. Her released memories breached containment, flooding the community and causing mass panic.
Fascinatingly, this disposal of the vulnerable is not isolated to Jonas's community. If we look at the companion novel Gathering Blue, we see a completely different aesthetic with the exact same underlying cruelty. In Jonas's sterile community, an underweight infant is murdered and shoved down a sanitized trash chute. But in Kira's savage society, which is ruled by fear and poverty, an infant with a twisted leg is just left to die in the foul-smelling mud of the field of leaving to be eaten by beasts. They look completely different on the surface, but both societies share the exact same fatal flaw. They view human life only in terms of its utilitarian value to the group. If you are weak, if you are different, if you are a few ounces too light or have a twisted leg, your life is simply forfeited. Whether shoved down a sterile trash chute or left in the mud, it's the exact same fatal flaw, governed purely by utilitarian math.
Witnessing this math in action is the catalyst that instantly ends the philosophical debate for Jonas and starts the physical survival. Jonas discovers that his beloved foster brother, a fretful new child named Gabriel, is scheduled to be released the very next morning simply because he doesn't sleep soundly enough. Once he knows that, he is forced to act immediately.
Jonas is forced to abandon all of his careful plans. He steals his father's bicycle solely because of the attached child's seat, and they flee headlong into the dead of night, but the community hunts them with heat-seeking planes. And right here, Jonas brilliantly weaponizes the very data the community deemed useless. He uses agonizing memories of snow and cold to literally lower their body temperatures, successfully evading the thermal cameras. They are defeated by the very nature they tried to delete.
But nature reasserts itself on them too. The climax hits so hard. They face actual starvation and a massive, brutal snowstorm. An exhausted Jonas has to carry Gabriel up a steep, treacherous hill, desperately scraping the bottom of his consciousness for any fading memories of warmth, just to keep the baby alive. And as he crests that summit, something miraculous happens. He finds a waiting sled, warmth, and the sound of music.
When you step back and look at the whole picture, a core truth emerges. True wisdom requires holding both the light and the dark. You simply cannot experience the breathtaking joy of a sled ride without accepting the very real risk of a broken leg. And you cannot experience deep love without making yourself vulnerable to profound grief. Our messy, painful, colorful experiences are exactly what make us human. And this brings us to a final, provocative thought to mull over long after this explainer ends. If the chaotic savagery of Kira's world in Gathering Blue is actually the very elsewhere that Jonas escapes to, which dystopia is truly worse? The one that murders you with a smile and a syringe? Or the one that forces you to fight for your life in the mud?